It was a quiet night. Not in the world, but in me. I felt something shift in the hearts of men. The air was heavy, not with storm, but with silence. A silence that comes before betrayal. A silence that speaks louder than words. Peter laughed earlier. He said he would die for me, and I believe his heart. Not because I was naive, but because I know what fear does to love. I saw the fire in his eyes, but I also saw the flicker of doubt beneath it. He did not know it yet, but his soul was already searching for the door of escape. Tonight, I watched my friends eat bread they did not understand. I washed their feet, and they thought it was just kindness. But it was more. It was goodbye. Each act was my final embrace, each word my final whisper. And still, he said, I will never leave you. And still, I loved him. That is the cost of love. To hold someone fully, even when you know they will break you. To look into the eyes of your betrayer and still offer them peace. My deepest pain was not the cross. My deepest pain was the moment I heard Peter say, I do not know the man. It echoed through eternity, not because of the words, but because of the heart that spoke them. A heart I held close, a heart that folded under fear. And yet, this too will be written in my diary. Not in anger, not in bitterness, but in mercy. Because the story is not just about denial. It's about what comes after. If these words reach your heart, if you've ever felt distant from me, I invite you, pause, breathe, and remember, love never walked away. You did, but I stayed. If your heart felt something while hearing this, if you've ever denied me in silence, but longed to return, touch this message with a like. Not for me, but as a sign you're listening again. The air was thick with the scent of dust and oil lamps. The stone walls of the upper room held the heat of the day, now slowly bleeding it into the night. A quiet trembled in the air, not a silence of peace, but of weight, of something unsaid. The bread was still on the table, broken, like my body would be. The wine stained the wooden cup like blood would stain my skin. They didn't understand yet, but I did. Every gesture felt eternal. Every breath felt borrowed. I looked around the room. 11 hearts beat near me, but one I felt slipping. Not Judas. No, that pain was already sealed. It was Peter I felt unraveling. He sat close like always, watching me, fierce eyes, full of promise. But promises made in the safety of supper are not the ones that survive the fire of fear. Outside, the wind began to change. The night had weight. It carried prophecy in its bones. A storm without thunder. A betrayal without sword. My soul felt it. A pressure, not from the world, but from within. Like my heart was leaning forward into what it could not avoid. And still I stayed. I smiled at them. I broke the bread. I poured the wine. My voice was steady, but my chest was tight. Love held me together. But sorrow lived beneath my ribs like a secret. Peter's hand touched mine when I offered him the cup. His grip was strong, but it trembled. He didn't know why, but I did. I saw the rooster before it crowed. I heard the words before they were spoken. I tasted the denial in the wine before he ever said, I do not know him. And yet, I loved him anyway. That is the weight I carried into the night. Not the cross, but a friend who would forget me to save himself. He was there, not beside me, but within me. Peter, the fisherman who dropped his nets for me. The voice that once said, You are the Christ. The hands that reached for me when he sank on the water. He had seen my face in the storm and still doubted and still believed. But now the storm was not outside. It was inside him, and I felt it. I carried not only the weight of the world's sin, but the weight of one man's fear. He didn't know the war being fought inside him, but I did. I could feel the ache of his coming regret before he even opened his mouth. The battle between loyalty and survival. The scream of love smothered by the whisper of fear. Peter was not evil. He was human. And that, perhaps, is what hurt most. Because I had walked with him, laughed with him, prayed with him. I had looked into his eyes and seen the man he could be, not the man he would become in the courtyard. In the stillness before the garden, I sat with this invisible pain. No one saw it. No one asked. They only saw a teacher, a miracle worker, a leader. But inside, I was a friend waiting to be forgotten. I wrestled with the reality that love does not guarantee loyalty, that even the purest heart can fail under pressure. And still, I loved him. This was the hidden cross, the one before the wood and nails. A cross made of memory, of tenderness, of loss. And as I sat in the shadows, I whispered a prayer not for myself, but for him. Let him come back when the rooster crows. Let him find me again in mercy. Because even in the face of denial, my love was not shaken. It was sharpened. I approached slowly. The wind stopped. His eyes closed. Peter stood by the fire, warming his hands. But his soul was cold. Every flicker of flame carved a shadow across his face. A face I had once lifted from the sea. I watched from a distance. I didn't need to be near to feel the breaking. I felt it in my chest like something sacred unraveling. Then came the words. Not once, not twice, but 3 times like the hammer that would later strike my hands. I do not know him. With every denial, my heart did not harden. It opened. Wider than before. Wider than pain, than fear, than abandonment. Because love does not retreat in betrayal. It expands. And in that final moment, his eyes met mine. Across the courtyard, across the failure, across the fire, he wept. Not because I punished him, but because I didn't. No stone was thrown. No curse was spoken. Only love. Only the look of a savior who still believed in the man who had denied him. That was the moment everything changed, not just for him, but for me. Because in his collapse, I saw the reason I had to endure. I was not dying for the perfect. I was dying for the ones who run, for the ones who fall, for the ones who say, I do not know him, and still long to return. And Peter, he would return, with a fire that could no longer be extinguished by fear. This is why I endured. Not just the nails, but the silence, the denial, the breaking, because love always finds a way back. If you've ever been Peter, if you've ever denied, doubted, walked away, let this be your moment of return. Subscribe to this diary, not for content, but for communion, to walk these pages with me, to remember, even when you forget me, I never forget you. And on this night, I learned something not written in the scrolls. I learned that a single tear can speak louder than a sword raised in battle. That a trembling voice whispering, I failed, carries more truth and beauty than 1,000 perfect prayers spoken without a heart. That love, true love, is not seen in how loudly one proclaims it, but in what one does after they fall. Peter's denial did not surprise me. I had already seen it before it was spoken. But what came after, the silence in his soul, the shattering in his heart, the look of devastation in his eyes when they met mine, that was where I saw the raw essence of love. Not in triumph, but in brokenness. I saw that love is not proven in moments of strength, but in the aftermath of failure. In the ashes of good intentions, in the pause after the mistake, when a soul doesn't run away from the pain, but feels it fully, and still longs to return. When Peter said, I do not know him, the world saw betrayal. But I didn't see a traitor. I saw a man torn apart by the weight of fear and the longing to be brave. A man who loved me deeply, but lost sight of that love when fear clouded the night. And in that very moment, I understood something even the angels cannot grasp. That mercy is not the reward of the righteous. It is the redemption of the broken. This is why I came. Not to be followed perfectly, not to be praised from a distance, but to meet souls in the ruins of their promises. To gather the pieces of hearts that meant well but shattered under pressure. To kneel beside the ones who are weeping after the rooster has crowed. To lift up those who think they've gone too far to return. And I learned something even deeper. Sometimes it is not prophecy that heals. It is presence. It's not the miracles. It's not the signs in the sky. It's the quiet mercy. The gentle look. The silence that says, I still love you. The absence of condemnation. The invitation to be seen even when you feel unworthy. That is where heaven touches earth. That is where my Father's will becomes more than law. It becomes a lifeline. So I write this, not in bitterness, but in blessing. Because Peter's failure taught me something sacred. Even when love is denied, it can still return. Even when faith falters, it can be reborn. Even when you run from me, you are never out of reach. And when love returns, scarred but honest, it returns stronger. So if you have denied me, out loud, in action, in silence, in shame, know this. Your story is not over. You're not defined by the moment you fell, but by the moment you choose to rise again. Let that moment be now. Let your next step be toward me. I will still be here, waiting, watching, loving, writing your return into my story, into my diary. Tonight, I did not lose a friend. I found the depth of love's endurance. Peter's voice still echoes in the chambers of time, not because of its betrayal, but because of what came after. Not defiance, not distance, but remorse. And in that remorse, I saw something eternal. The courage it takes to return is greater than the shame that makes you run. The stars above did not dim when he denied me, but inside me, something quiet broke and something brighter awakened. I understood, at last, what my father always knew. That love, true love, must be willing to be wounded. It must stretch far enough to hold those who flee. It must believe enough to wait at the edge of someone's regret. And it must remain soft, even when the heart has been pierced. Tonight, I did not teach a parable. Tonight, I lived one. And in Peter's eyes, filled with tears and torment, I remembered why I came. Not to be worshipped in temples, but to weep in gardens, to be denied and still return, to be forgotten and still remember, to love when love is not returned. So I write this page not with anger, but with hope, because if he returns, then anyone can. If Peter was not too far gone, then neither are you. If you've ever felt like Peter, if you've ever broken your promise, walked away, or whispered, "I don't know him," with your life, tell me, what would you say to me now if I were standing beside your fire? Don't be afraid to answer. I won't turn away. I said nothing. I just let that moment become a word in my Jesus diary. If this page of my diary reached your heart, share it. Not for numbers, not for noise, but because someone you love might be standing where Peter stood, afraid, ashamed, needing to know they're still seen. Let this story travel like mercy does, quietly but powerfully. And before you go, another moment is waiting for you. It's appearing on your screen now. A page not yet read, a tear not yet dried. Watch it. Let's speak to the part of you still hiding. Let your soul remember, I do not give up on the ones who walk away.